Holy crap. So Sigma just announced an 18 to 50 millimeter f2.8 zoom for Sony Aps-c. I shouldn't say announced. The embargo lifted right now. There's been some reviews on websites like TP Review and what used to be Technology Mafia. Arthur R just released a review on it, and holy crap, it's so good. Yeah, it's a standard zoom range, 18 to 50, so it's super useful. I mean, do I wish it was wider? Sure, but I mean, I can live with an 18. I currently live with an 18. I have an 18 to 135, and it's a constant f2.8, but it's so much smaller and lighter than the Sony version, which is a 16 to 55. And it's so much cheaper. It's only $550 versus $1,400 for the Sony version, and it's weather sealed. It's got a weather gasket. Oh my God, that's so good. And in terms of optical performance, it looks like it's on par with the Sony. Not like perfect, but still very good. Yeah, the only thing that I don't love about it is that it's not image stabilized, which means that it's probably not usable for handheld video work, so for vlogging and things like that. Now, to be fair, the Sony 16 to 55 is also not stabilized, so you know, it kind of sucks either way, because you know a standard zoom would be an ideal vlogging lens, but I guess you can't have everything. But at $550, the sting is a lot less than paying $1,400 for a non-stabilized lens. Yeah, holy crap! 18 to 50 standard zoom, 2.8 constant aperture for Sony APS-C for $550. Man, whew, I don't know that I can resist this one. The problem is that it's hard to justify having that lens and also my current one, which is the Sony 18 to 135, because they both cover a very similar range. Yes, the Sony 18 to 135 has a much longer zoom range up to 135, but you know, usually I use the more standard focal lengths, and you know, once I'm getting out to 135, it gets pretty dark. It's like it's a 5.6, and to be honest, part of me kind of wants to also get the 70 to 350 zoom for the longer reach. So I think having the Sigma 18 to 50 makes sense if I also get the 70 to 350. I mean, yeah, sure, just buying more lenses, right? But I think having both would be the best way to replace the 18 to 135. Though that said, do I really need the 350 millimeter reach? Usually not really, because I don't do a ton of bird photography. I would love to, but you know, truthfully, I don't do a lot of it. You know, like true bird photography takes more effort than just walking around with a big lens. Like you have to go to specific places, be there for a certain amount of time, and literally spend hours in a blind. Or you have to create a habitat, you know, where you are shooting, specifically to attract birds. So like bird photography is fairly involved. It's not just going out with a long lens, and so that's why I don't know that I will necessarily do that much of it, even if I have a 350 mil reach. But yeah, holy crap! The Sigma 18 to 50 in of itself is justifiable just for its size and weight. It looks small and light, and that in of itself may be good enough reason to replace my 18 to 135. Oh, man. I don't know when it's going to be available, but that one is going to be difficult to resist. Now that said, I already have the Sigma 16mm f1.4. I have the Sony 35mm f1.8. If I just get the Sigma 56mm f1.4, then I will essentially cover that whole focal range and have it be, a much wider aperture and much more usable in low light conditions and better for portrait photography. It obviously, it's the age-old compromise between having, image quality and low light performance in primes versus the convenience of a constant 2.8 standard zoom. But that may be the way to go. I complained about the 56mm f1.4 for the fact that it also isn't stabilized and so can't be used for video work, but this new zoom also isn't stabilized, so it kind of makes sense. And the 56mm has a slightly longer reach that actually approaches the 85mm portrait, sort of standard portrait focal length, whereas obviously the 50mm end of this zoom only goes out to about 75mm, and it's a 2.8. That is basically that's an awesome walk around lens. Speaking of which, I'm in my office right now, and so I have access to my Sony Alpha 65 here. So this is the 16 to 50 constant f2.8 for SLR, and this thing, I love this lens, and it basically lives on this camera, so I know how useful it is. I think this is a fantastic lens for walk around. I don't think it's bright enough for getting those dramatic shots, right? But if you're looking for convenience and just shooting vacation photos and things like that, this sort of standard 2.8 lens is the way to go. And I think that Sigma lens is cheaper than even this thing when I got this thing new. Oh man. Well, even more gear to drool over. Alright, I just saw some reviews for the Sigma 18 to 50 millimeter. So it's not a completely rosy picture here. It's a very sharp lens, though there is some softness in the corner, so it's okay. Like I'm willing to accept a little bit of softness, but something that seems to be a problem and is hard to correct, and it's not something that I like having to deal with, is the longitudinal chromatic aberration, or LOCA. Because I think that kind of color fringing, it's difficult to correct in post. Now that said, if you typically don't do pixel peeping and you don't look very hard, you may not notice it, especially on smaller screens like on a phone, which is typically how most people consume social media. But that is one of those annoying things that I just don't love dealing with. Another thing that seems to be a bit of an issue is that there is pretty strong distortion. Now, in-body corrections will fix that, but obviously if you want to shoot raw, that's something that you're going to have to correct for after the fact. Another thing that I don't love is that it's not parfocal. I think my 16 to 50 millimeter f2.8 alpha mount lens, that thing is very nearly parfocal. And so it's kind of a joy to just manually zoom in, nail focus, and then zoom out if you need to. Now that said, it looks like, I've never tried this, but it looks like the newer E-mount cameras will automatically do focus corrections even in manual focus. So if you zoom in, the body will automatically readjust focus to account for lack of parfocalness. So if that's true, then it's not a huge deal. But parfocal is obviously something nice to have. I certainly wouldn't want to give up the size convenience of a small lens to obtain parfocalness if the body can take care of it itself automatically. And finally, it seems like there is some decent macro capability with this lens. Namely, when you're 18 millimeters, you can get very close to your subject. So that's a very close minimum focusing distance, which is great. Less so for 50 millimeters, though it's apparently not too bad. So that's nice. That's a nice little bonus to have. Yeah. So overall, knowing all of this, am I still considering it? I guess so. I certainly would consider it before the Sony version, the 16 to 55. But that Loca is the big thing. I hate dealing with it. So at the end of the day, I may end up still opting for a 56mm f1.4 just to cover that focal range, or skip the 56 and get an 85mm portrait lens. That's more similar to or that's a little bit longer and a little bit more dramatic for those portraits. Because like I said in my other video, I already have an 85mm full frame f1.4 that I use for portraits, so it's an equivalent to a 135mm. I'm already used to that. Yeah.